Just want to welcome everybody here tonight. We're just all getting together tonight, part of the roundtable, to discuss Bet Bash number 3 and all the great experiences that we had at Bet Bash 3. And we'll give the first story going to a legend in our game, and his name is Fats. Fats, would you like to go first?
Hey, Scotty, how you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Very well.
Thank you. I mean, when you take Bet Bash 3 and you break it down, it all comes down to one absolutely positively amazing event, and that was the Hall of Fame banquet. And everything came together at the end for that banquet, and Spanky's vision of what the inaugural Hall of Fame class should be and how that should go down. And the people that were in that room, it's like epic to the 10th power. And that's like an understatement. I mean, you had Billy Walters and Jack Binion. You had, all the inductees, Scotty, Roxy, Jimmy Vaccaro, Billy Baxter, who's also a poker Hall of Famer, who almost won his 8th bracelet this past summer. All the various board members, the other industry pros that were there. It was just a literal who's who of who's who of who's who of who's who. And it just the room, just the presence in the room, it's like it's just like goosebump worthy, for if you could say that for sports betting type people. I mean, it was just absolutely you'll never put that group of people in a room together ever again for a long time, if ever. And it was just something to really remember. And the presentations were so well put together, and it flowed smoothly. Everything about the evening went just phenomenal with the banquet. I mean, I don't think you could have done much to make it better.
Yeah, I thought the Hall of Fame ceremony was absolutely incredible, especially when Jack Binion went to the podium to introduce Billy Walters. That's something that it was just absolutely priceless to get to see. The next story, we're going to throw it to Queen Sophia here, and let you tell the story. I think you want to have a Bet Bash story or a speed networking story, correct?
Speed networking story. Speed networking, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I was quite intimidated being the only woman in the room, actually. Well, there was 3 women in the whole event. I was the only professional bettor in the room as a female. So I kind of felt quite intimidated by the people I was meeting. And I met Roxy, and I'm thinking the whole time, oh my goodness, I feel like I've got imposter syndrome here. Can I talk the talk? Can I, hold a conversation with him? So we actually spoke a lot about Australian betting in our conversation, and we spoke about our minimum bet laws here, and we had a backwards and forwards about sports betting and whether or not he thought that would be, or I thought that would be, something useful for the American market. And so we kind of talked around that for a while, and at the end of the conversation he said to me, well, I've learned something from you today. It's been my best meeting of the day. And he felt around in his pocket, and he was just like, I feel like I need to reward you for such an entertaining conversation. And he poured out a pen and he handed me the pen. And for a moment, I felt like a 3rd grader, like I'd won Teacher's Pet Award or something. And then I kind of realized that it was trying to be really gentlemanly and honor me, by saying thank you for our conversation. So it was a lovely moment, and made me feel kind of confident that I was entitled to my place in the room and in that space. So, yeah.
You're definitely entitled to your place in the room. I'm a little bit disappointed with Rob because I've known Rob for quite a while and he's never really mentioned you. When I got to talk to you for just 15, 20 minutes, I immediately pulled some other guys in the roundtable and I said, we need to make her a full member. So I want to thank you for being willing to join us. And I did happen to talk. I drew Roxy also, and I did not get a present. I did talk to a couple other people that drew Roxy. They got pins also. So apparently he wasn't a big fan of mine. He was a really, really big fan of yours, but not a big fan of mine. But it was still a very, very good speed networking event for me also. I was able to grab Robert Kowalski, who we've been friends for 10 plus years. I got Rob Pasola. I got some great guys in mine. Much better matches than it was even last year. So Speed Network got 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I had better matches than Rob actually. So same for us. I think I got 4 or 5 really valuable connections. And interestingly, Rob are running the same algorithm. But yeah, I was just matched with more useful people for us anyway. Yeah.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that. Adam, do you have any stories from us about Bet Bash from Phoenix?
Sure. Just kind of a personal highlight for me, and it really started with Bet Bash too, but was being able to rekindle with Chris Andrews and Roxy. I grew up in the Bay Area, and so we used to go to Reno when I turned 21, and we went there and started going down the strip. And when I walked into the Calneva, 3rd floor was the race and sports book and poker room, and it was like the heavens open. I'm like, hey, I can hang out here. You know, they created such an amazing environment, and the characters in this place it's incredible. So I, to this day, kind of rate every sports book I go into to that Calneva. So it's been really cool to be able to just get with them and reminisce about stuff like that. It's just been a nice highlight. And so I'd like to say thanks to Spanky for that happening inadvertently, so to speak.
Yeah, and I ran into Chris Andrews myself, and I made sure that I took the time to thank him for still having 10-cent baseball lines in Vegas. It seems like every other book in town has went to enormous splits, but Chris has held the line at 10-cent baseball lines, and I think it's important to thank the people when they're doing something great for us, as well as it is to complain when things aren't going as well. But Adam, you're a big player in our roundtable. Roundtable wouldn't be around if it wasn't for you and I meeting at Bet Bash too. And so I'm really thankful for Spanky and giving you and I a chance to meet.
Amen to that, brother.
Tom, you're up next if you have a story.
What's up? Yeah, I'll talk about the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame because I thought that was really cool. Yep. And I remember in anticipation of Bet Bash 2, that's when I joined Twitter to kind of just check out what was going on in the whole gambling world. But my Twitter account ended up just arguing about who should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So now I'm actually proud of this, that I am now the first person who is on social media being critical of the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. And that's going to be my plan over the next year, is hopefully every week just bring criticism to the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. And for Fats and everyone, that's not to take it personally, but that's to legitimize it. Because when it comes to the other sports Hall of Fames, there is huge communities of guys and ladies who just criticize it endlessly. And that's, like I say, I'm proud to be the first one to do that.
Well, who's missing from the Hall of Fame that you think makes it illegitimate?
So first of all, I actually think it's too many. And that's a great question because, this is going to go on for 20, 30, 50, 100 years. And so there will end up being hundreds of inductees. So I would prefer a slow process. And, if you're going to have 10, make sure it's absolutely the best 10. If we're going to get it up to 100, make sure it's the 100 most deserving. And again, gambling world's a little bit different than the sports world. So I only had one name, and that was Tom Chin, who was a big founder of Pinnacle. But I think my main criticism, and I'll be doing this over the year, is actually going to be the process, because it ended up being just so heavy in Las Vegas and in management. I would have loved more diversity going into New York, the islands, Australia, stuff like that.
Okay, and we're having a problem with Fats's mic. So I think we should give Fats a chance to respond to this. And I believe... Go ahead, Fats.
I think that there did seem to be a Vegas-centric theme to this year's opening class, but I don't think you can really take away from any of the choices as not deserving to be first round selections. And also the criteria, I'm not convinced that we'll be able to put, 10 people in each year based on the stringent criteria that we have. We have to have a 75% approval rating out of the board of directors, and that's not an easy number to hit. So it's not a guarantee that we can hit that year after year after year. So I would, before you think that there's going to be 200 people in it in 10 years, I'd give it a few years and see how it plays out first.
Well, what I believed, and thank you for cutting his mic, Cameron. What I believed is the first year was going to be special because they were bringing in people that were no longer with us. I never thought that there would be 10 nominated every year. I thought there would just be 2 or 3 probably going on in the future. And given the fact we have your full attention here right now, Fats, I sure hope you guys will consider Dink next year. And it also looks like we have Spanky just joining us right now. Spanky, would you like to say a couple words?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I kind of missed the part about the Hall of Fame. I just kind of walked in towards the end of it about critiquing the Hall of Fame and everything. So would you mind just repeating that part so I could kind of address it?
Tom will let you repeat it, okay?
Oh, yeah. So I'm actually proud to be the first critic of the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame because there's hundreds, thousands of us doing it for the Baseball Hall of Fame. So the first point is that, we want this to go on for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. So there's going to be hundreds of guys and hopefully ladies going in. And I think it's important that when there's 10 and when there's 50, it's the 50 most deserving. And that if that we can't say that there's someone, he's more deserving than somebody who's already in. I think that's the best way to do Hall of Fames. And I don't know, the gambling world is a little bit underground, but I just got the feeling it was very Las Vegas heavy and very heavy on the management side. I would have loved more diversity going into where you are, New York, going into the islands more, going to Australia. And then it also was the time, it seemed very much 1970s Las Vegas. This we're already into the 2023 and the 21st century was kind of left out, and maybe some pioneers as well. There was only one pioneer who went in. And I also think maybe the process could be better. I'm not sure my fantasy of how it would work is really feasible, but that's something I might be putting up on Twitter throughout the year.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let me address everything. These are all great points, and I 100% agree with a lot of your points. When I built this panel, I obviously did not want to make an old boys club and a whole Vegas centric thing. And I when somebody just looks at the 10-person inductees, the people, a lot of them are from Vegas. The truth be told is, Vegas is kind of the origins of the sports gambling industry. Before, in the regulated industry, of course, everything started in the streets of New York, Philly, Pittsburgh, Chicago, all like the underground, and I wanted to make sure that also too was recognized. So I made sure that when we built this board, that we would have guys from or representatives from everywhere. So Christopher Bruno, who's a New York City bookmaker, and he represents kind of the New York crowd. Dickie Carson, who spent several years offshore and in Vegas. Paris Smith, who built her whole career offshore, is on the board. And she's definitely nothing to do with Vegas. So I and Alan Boston, who's a pro bettor, who spent some time in Vegas, but also was able to bet all over the world. So I agree with you that we didn't want to make it fully Vegas centric, but Vegas is kind of a basis for what we're going towards. But everybody understands that we're going forward. This is not going to be just a Vegas Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. This is going to be a national, if not international. If you read our rules and regulations, this is basically most of the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame is primarily based on North American sports, where rare exceptions can be made for international sports. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. This was the first class of 10. I don't know if we're going to be doing 10 every year. That's going to be a board vote. But there will definitely be some offshore. There'll definitely be some international. There'll definitely be some, different flavors all around. So I 100% hear you, and I 100% agree with you. And we're going to get there. Again, this was just the first class of 10. The one thing about, I know we're in the 21st century, but, this thing should have started 20 years ago. And honestly, if we built the Sports Game Hall of Fame 20 years ago, all 10 of these inductees would have still been inducted, because most of their credentials and most of their achievements took place in the 20th century. So, we're a little bit behind. This wasn't started, when it should have been. So we're going to catch up. And again, it's going to take years and years, but we'll definitely recognize, there's different things, we're definitely going to recognize and hopefully recognize everybody, particularly outside the Vegas realm.
Well, I just want to make sure that we give Dink a shot at being nominated to be elected in next year. That's the key thing I'd like to see. But other than that, I thought the Hall of Fame was spectacular. Tom, did you have any other thing you wanted to close with?
Yeah, I love hearing all that, Spanky. It sounds good, and having the more criticism it receives, the more it legitimizes it as a true Hall of Fame.
Appreciate it. We want, we have to spread this thing out, right? So we have to make it last for years and years and years. 10 people is a very heavy class. We'll never go above 10. I don't think we'll ever be at 10. I don't know. But we wanted to make sure that we had a foundation, a heavy base. When you're building a building, you want to make sure that base, the foundation is strong. So when you Billy Walters on one pillar representing the better side, when you have Bob Marr on the other hand representing the bookmaker side, those are the two pillars that everything pretty much is based on. When you ask anybody in the industry, the best bookmaker around, in the last 60 years, it's Bob Martin. Who's the best sports bettor? It's Billy Walters. So I think that was an important thing to have those two pillars. Everything then is built on those pillars. Like, you can't, just like in baseball Hall of Fame or any Hall of Fame, you have your Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, you have your Ty Cobb, you have your, signature 3-4 people that are like, okay, this is a legitimate Hall of Fame. These are legitimate from both sides of the counter. And then, when you have your Roxy Roxborough also to kind of bring things in, there's just so many, and again, this board, it was Fats could tell you, because Fats is part of the board. We voted on everything, and we have the history of all of our votes in the rules and regulations to kind of explain what was voted on, and it's all publicly online on sghof.com. So everything was voted on, from can groups be inducted to different so many things, but and can rules be changed? The one rule though that can never be changed, that the board agreed upon, is that 75% approval rating. That'll never be modified. And that, and also we have rules on to be able to build the board up. So to be able to increase the board, to have new board members join, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I appreciate your feedback, man, and we're welcome to it. And again, for the Circa and Derek Stevens to entrust in me and this board on whose names are going on the plaques in his casino, he knows that this is legitimate and that we're doing everything we can to make sure that the people that put their names put up in his casino are, well deserving. Could there be others that are deserving more so? Could we skip somebody? Oh, how could you not put this guy in? Of course, there's going to be debate on that. Stan Thompson was a name that got brought up this year in the board. He just didn't quite make it, but Stan Thompson is inevitably going to be in the Hall of Fame. We just don't know when. It all depends on when the board gets to it. Again, Stan Thompson, though, kind of built and came to power in the pinnacle world, and in the 80s, of course, when it comes to sports gambling in the 80s, 90s, and so forth, most of these guys were primarily, like before then, like you said, more 70s, with a little bit of 80s. So it's we're slowly getting there.
Well, like I say, I think the Hall of Fame was outstanding. And just so you listeners that are listening to this know, we're having a slight mic problem here. So, Sonia, if you would turn your mic off. Rob, if you would turn your mic on. I will go ahead and tell the next story. Rob, you'll be up next. One of my favorite things that happened at Bet Bash was a couple of us were in line to try the oxtail soup. I was in line with Adam, I was in line with Spencer, and we were there to finally give it a try. And we're waiting in line for probably a half an hour, 45 minutes. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I see Chinese Mike join the line at the very end. I go and grab him and I say, hey, why don't you eat the oxtail soup with us? And it was so great getting to eat with him again. It's been just too long since I've got to eat with him. So it was a great experience. The oxtail soup is a must-do. I think everybody should try it. And the best way to eat oxtail soup is with Chinese Mike. Rob, you're up next if you'd like to tell a story.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's great hearing everyone talk. Yeah, I think the amazing thing about Bet Bash, I haven't got a story in particular. Like, nothing's going to beat my random taxi with Zelko last year's story, which was incredible. But I think it's just the people you meet is amazing. You meet the big names. Like, I must have shook Spanky's hand 5 times. He's such a welcoming host. That was cool. Legends like Roxy that Sonia met, but also like there's massive players in the industry. There's syndicates are there now as well, and just meeting them they're amazing people to talk to. And then you just meet all these really incredibly smart people along the way too, doing really interesting things you never really knew about, even knew existed. It's just so great. You're just learning all the time. It was great meeting you guys. I met Spencer Milkshake last year in person. He's connected me to all of you, but I've only ever known you as a digital presence. So just to chat in person, about everything gambling, but also just making some good, some great new mates as well was fantastic. And there's just so many opportunities for it all as well. Like there's open bars, dinners, the speed networking, the activities. They're all just great opportunities. So we made some amazing connections. So much so that I might completely shift what I do in the gambling world based on a couple of those connections. So just amazing. It's just we all love plus EV plays, and that's really how I saw our trip. It's so high EV, it's not funny attending this event. It was last year and it was this year more so, and it just will be every year. It's just such a great event. And even if you're not interested in betting, or you got nothing out of that, it's Vegas there's nowhere else like it in the world. It's a party town. I love downtown along the Fremont Street experience. Everyone's drinking on the street. Half the people are high, but there's no fights. It's just fun. Everyone's in a great mood. It's such a great atmosphere. Just love it. We'll be back every year. And I guess I also had an idea for next year, so that was partly about what this conversation was. I think it'd be great if there was a meetup event on niche areas. So we're a little bit niche being Australian, so maybe a little meetup for the Australians, horse racing, a little meetup for that, UFC maybe, little areas where you can just go, hey, that's my little area. I'd like to meet everyone who's doing something in that space. We did meet most of them eventually, but yeah, maybe a morning on that would be fantastic next year. But yeah, thanks for having us along to this, Scott, and thanks again, Spanky, for the event. It was fantastic.
Yeah, the biggest complaint I think everybody on this call is going to have is that Bet Bash is too short, but we're too old for it to be any longer. That's really the problem I'm having with it. But I did have the special luncheon on the Tuesday and the Monday, and I plan on doing that every year of Bet Bash because it was good getting most of our team, except for the guys who got delayed with flights. Everybody was at that Tuesday luncheon. When Spanky got rid of Better Bookie Breakfast, I knew we had to put it back on the schedule. We ended up getting about 45 people to the Tuesday one. We only had about 20 to the Monday one. I'd like to try and push our team to come in on Monday next year so that we can spend a little more time. Like, for example, the perfect example here is Sonia, because you've hidden her so well from us. We didn't actually know her. And so as soon as we got to meet her, I only got to spend about an hour with her total. Because remember, we tried to eat oxtail soup with her. Actually, Chinese Mike got your spot is where that happened. So, yeah, it was a great experience all the way around. And I was even able to get some of my proxy guys to the Tuesday lunch. And I plan on doing that next year, too, inviting everybody who signs up for the proxy to the Monday and the Tuesday lunch next year.
Yeah, we made some of our best connections on the Tuesday, actually.
At the Tuesday lunch?
It was great. Yeah.
Perfect. Then I'm going to have to raise the price of it next year is what you're telling me. Duly noted. Sonia, did you want to say something?
I have childhood terrors growing up in London eating oxtail soup. I don't think you'll ever get me to eat oxtail soup.
We had you in line.
Company's welcome, the oxtail soup.
I can't believe we had you in line to eat it, but you had that other appointment that you had to go that was more important than us, remember?
The Stratosphere. It was
Stratosphere, yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
All right, Cameron, let's go to Canada and see what you got up there.
Yeah, well, it's worth the trip. It's worth the trip down the connecting flights from Canada, right? Because it's an event that gets everybody together, which is a unique experience and worth the price of admission, right? To get that many different kinds of people in one place at one time, right? Like that doesn't exist at any other time of the year. Like it's a unique experience, right? So I saw John Reeder, who hosts the Risk of Ruin podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, at the sign up on Tuesday night. Very generous with his time, right? I had a nice conversation with him. Just walking through Circa, I saw UFC Hall of Famer Michael Bisping just sitting at the bar, right? Go up and talk to that guy. And then I have friends that I made at last Bet Bash that I do not talk to ever, right? But then I see him at the sign up on Tuesday, and then we're best friends again, right? And we're best friends for like 4 days, like it's summer camp or something, and then I'm never gonna see that person again. But so you get like just unique experiences there, and form like weird sports betting related friendships. But it's ruined Vegas for me because I can't go unless I'm going to an exclusive pool party that's open bar. Like I can't even imagine going to Vegas and not doing that. So I can pretty much only go for Bet Bash now, I think.
Well, it was definitely a great time. You want to turn Fats's mic on and let him tell a story real quick?
Well, I've got, the only other thing that I can remember is I'm still suffering from the trauma of having been trapped in the elevator on the night of the VIP party. But I'm slowly getting over it.
We can't talk when you're talking because your mic has that problem. I didn't know you got trapped in the elevator at all. But if you did, it was probably with some atmosphere models, which is exactly the topic I want to talk with Spanky about right now, because this thing has taken over the net. Everybody's talking about the atmosphere models, and I'd like a chance for you to just clear the air here. And the first thing I want to ask you is how many females did you deny buying tickets to Bet Bash?
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that. There's nobody was obviously, we don't deny anybody. Everybody and anybody's welcome to come to Bet Bash. So there's no discrimination whatsoever. Obviously more males buy tickets than females. That's just how it is. But Sonia, were you on the winning scavenger hunt team, or was that you?
Your mic's off, Sonia.
No, we wasn't that smart. I
No.
don't know where we come.
Okay.
I think we come fourth, fifth. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I knew somebody. Yeah, plus EV had. So yeah, there was there was a few, but there's we welcome everybody, and so there's nobody denied access ever.
Yeah, and there was a lot of people that I ran into at this Bet Bash that were still talking about the legacy party last year with all the models. Now, I got to admit, I had a whole list of people I wanted to run across and get to spend some time with. I didn't have time to talk to the atmosphere models, but I certainly don't care if they're there. And if that makes the whole week happy for somebody, I think you made a great purchase by bringing them in to Bet Bash.
Yeah, listen, exactly. Like, you know what I mean? It's atmosphere. It's decoration. That's what it is. And it's like nobody. It's they're there for people that want that are want to talk to people. Again, it's if you look at the circa and you go down into the blackjack pit or the craps, the dice table, whatever. There's women dancing and just on poles and it's just you know what I mean. That's just the atmosphere that the circa brings, and Derek Stevens kind of created that with the D in the circa. Does that mean that when women are going to go play blackjack, they're like, oh my God, how could this be happening? I'm not going to play blackjack here. You know what I mean? Just I don't know. It's just part of the atmosphere, and I actually got the idea from the circa people. You know what I mean? They're the ones who kind of helped me with this and say, hey, I told them my first Bet Bash, there was 220 tickets sold, 213 were men, 7 were women. What do I do? How do I increase female attendance? And they're just like, we don't really know, but we could inject female attendance and on a certain level. And that's sometimes what you got to do. And trust me, I wish that we can have more female presence coming to Bet Bash, and we certainly try our best, and we don't really do any marketing, but we're going to try. We're going to start building a marketing team and do all that stuff. But believe me, it's all welcoming, and we just want everybody to have a good time. There's no discrimination whatsoever. So I don't, I hope, Sonia. I hope. Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah,
go ahead. I love. Please.
Look, I'm not vanilla at all. So obviously, women, I work, male-dominated kind of area is fine. When I kind of reflect on that whole event over the 4 days, there was a lot of extremely smart, talented men, predominantly in the room. And female presence, I think, what can they talk about other than look pretty? So the female presence in the room, I think that, maybe you're looking for good conversationalists, women that can talk about betting or maybe talk about, the conference or things that we've been involved in, or even have a knowledge of sports or the industry that we work in. I mean, I guess, are you window dressing, or are you looking for actual female presence and in the room where there's a degree of conversation that can be had peer to peer, rather than just having pretty girls in the room that a company, yeah, no doubt, but there's lots of company in the room. There's lots of smart people to talk to. So Yeah, the girls didn't want to talk to me either. So they didn't come and keep me company. A couple of times where I was standing on my own and had no one engaging with me, and they didn't approach me. So yeah, I don't know. I get it's all about entertainment, and I'm not offended at all. But if it's to kind of improve the ratio, I don't know. Maybe get some PhDs in there.
Well,
Yeah,
the problem what we really have on Twitter is most of the people that are complaining about the atmosphere models are people that didn't even buy a ticket, which I think is just hilarious. Right. But I'll tell you this, Sonia, I disagree with you here because I wanted to talk to you at that Legacy Club, and you said I can only have 15 minutes. Remember, I was second or third in line with you. And I said, look, I want to get a place. And all I got was 15 minutes with you. So I don't know when you were by yourself, but there was a whole bunch of people at my table that definitely wanted to visit with you. So I thought it was a great experience. I don't think it could have been much better. I didn't have time to talk to the atmosphere models, but I got to talk to who I wanted to. So I was very pleased with it.
Yeah, again, the atmosphere models, is just for the last event. It's for the last event, which is kind of like after the Hall of Fame, you kind of be able to unwind, relax. And, we're not having atmosphere models at every open bar. We're not having atmosphere models as part of the speed networking. No, that's not going to happen. We have them just there for the final event. If guys want to, let loose a little bit, if they want to, as sports bettors, a lot of sports bettors, let's just, call a spade a spade. A lot of sports bettors are, not socially strong. Sometimes, just that's how it is. And sometimes it's nice for somebody to say, hey, listen, I could talk to somebody of the opposite sex and maybe, just have a conversation. Even guys, some of these atmosphere models, they're very, some of them are very well educated. Some of them are smart, and some of them actually are experts at social media. My buddy Matt Landis, he told me last year, and he told me again this year, he wanted to bring one of them on his podcast to be able to discuss, how, marketing yourself in social media. And he kind of learned a couple of tips from one of the models on how to be able to expand his podcast and kind of, build a bigger social media presence. So there's a lot to be had. I think there's a nugget you could take from every single person, and again, I don't think, just like Scott said, if you want to go talk to atmosphere models, you can, and if you don't have to. They're there, and for anybody to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're here," that's a little bit too much for me. And we're, they're there, and then you don't have to have a conversation with them. You don't have to look at them. You don't have to acknowledge them. They're never going to be too pushy or be in your way. Just like anybody else at Bet Bash, if they walk up to you, man, woman, or anything, that, if they want to talk to you, great. And if you don't want to talk to them, you can just say thanks, but no thanks. Just walk away and talk to somebody else. So.
Yeah, I think we've hammered this one to death. I just can't believe how much action it's getting on Twitter. Well, Spanky,
I'd just like to say something about it before we wrap it up. And because I was kind of at the center of that whole controversy. And of the people that were complaining about it, I spoke directly to each of the female people individually on DM and got a resolution with all of them. And they all basically backed off their positions. And the issue, what became clear after I was done talking with all of them, was that, they understood that at the end of the day, that prior to the legacy party, they were all not one of them was not taken seriously as a female attendee at the conference for whatever they had to offer within the sports industry. And, and everybody, and, it was agreed that they'd rather know who they like than whether or not they were a model or something like that. So as long as they're being treated during the actual conference as legitimate female attendees with something to contribute to the industry, and they're being treated as peers, then there really isn't an issue. And some of the issues that they had with the models were interactions that they had directly with the models themselves that were more personal issues than something that maybe a fellow attendee had said to them. So there was a lot of stuff like that, but most of that stuff was pretty much had been resolved, and they're all pretty much okay for now. So that's all I got to say.
Can I say something? My experience as a female, and there wasn't many females in that room, was it was an incredibly respectful the whole of the 4 days. Peer to peer, I didn't have any feelings of people not being interested in me or not thinking that I was at the peer level or the same as them. There was lots I couldn't talk about, of course, because I do horse racing betting, but I was treated with a lot of respect. I didn't feel uncomfortable at any stage by any of the men that I had interactions with. So I'm surprised if there were women there that were engaged with in a very non-respectful way, because actually that was not my experience at all. And if anything, that's a credit to actually the professionalism of the men in the room as well, that they treated me as a professional as well. There was no gender kind of division at all. It was as long as you could kind of hold a conversation about something that you were interested in, it wouldn't have really mattered if I was green and an alien, to be honest. So I would be disappointed. I would be surprised to actually hear that there was anything that was disrespectful towards women in any of the events over them 4 days.
I appreciate you saying that, Sonia, and it's not just gender. We even, like, you know what I mean? I make it very clear, if any pro tries to, disrespect or insult a recreational bettor, even on levels of sophistication, this is a welcoming thing. So I make, if there's anybody that's an asshole in any way, shape, or form, they won't come back. And I made that clear before the event, and I appreciate you saying that, because listen, this is not, don't get me wrong, not everybody's holding hands and singing love songs, but as long as everybody, there's just a level of respect that everybody should have with each other, and that's all we have. We want to try to make this as inviting as possible, and we want to push that as much as possible. And I make sure, and I don't hear any complaints, and if there are anything, we make sure that we address it right away. So thank you, Sonia, for saying that. It means a lot, and I want that to extend not just gender, but also age. Some people, somehow that old guy doesn't know anything, or that old person doesn't know anything, or sophistication. Oh, this young kid, he's just coming up. What the hell? We don't want that. We want to be able to hear everybody's voice, and everybody to, I want to make sure I have a conversation with everybody. And like I said, no matter what your age is, your gender, your level of sophistication, your number of years of experience, everybody's gonna have something to offer. We're all bring a certain quality, a certain skill base, and I think that's what Bet Bash is all about. Just like Rob said earlier, you're able to find connections and make connections, and you don't know when it's gonna happen. Could be at a breakfast, could be at a bar, could be at a speed networking. So I'm glad that overall, and with our survey that we sent out, the response is overwhelmingly positive.
Well, that's because you only get a survey back from people that actually bought a ticket, not that have a Twitter account. But and Sonia is brilliant, and I don't know if you heard this or not, Spanky, but she has accepted membership into the Roundtable, so we're very, very happy to have her. But what I'd like to end this call with is I want you to sell us Bet Bash 4. What are the big changes you're going to make Bet Bash 4 10 times better than Bet Bash 3?
I can't. Listen, I'm not. I knew Bet Bash 2 was going to be better than Bet Bash 2, and nobody believes me. Yeah, there's no way I can make anything better than what we just had. Like I'll fine tune a few things, but there's no, I can't. We might, we're going to talk it over. We're probably, the scavenger hunt we had mixed reviews on. It went too long, and that's completely my fault. I overestimated the you know, I thought the crowd was going to be able to stop a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but that's okay. And we might do. We're thinking possibly of maybe putting in a charity poker tournament for all attendees. There might be something to kind of, you know, inject something in there. We'll see. We're discussing different ideas. Bar Canada is probably going to be no more. We've kind of outgrown that joint. It's a beautiful place, but we're probably going to be moving everything inside the circuit now and the overhang bar or whatever. So, you know, we're going to be making some little adjustments here and there. The speed networking, we're going to be making the schedules are going to be all set the night before, and we're no longer going to accommodate. You know, if people want to show up the morning of, and that's the first time they want to, you know, do the registration, they'll still be able to take part in the speed networking. They just won't have the optimal matches, you know, that the speed networking is able to give you. They'll still be matched up, that they'll be random matches. You know, so we're going to make sure that everything starts on time, kind of kill all the hiccups. And again, you know what I mean? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's again, the reviews. I think it was 95% of people that filled out a survey said they'd come back. So it's just, you know, you can't ask for anything better than that, because most people that fill out a survey usually have something to say, that, you know, or a qualm or something that, you know, I didn't like this or I didn't like that. So for people to fill out the survey and have a 95% return rate, that's pretty amazing. So we're really, really excited, and we can't thank the circuit crew enough. And, you know, again, if you haven't filled out a survey, anybody here, please do so and tell us all your thoughts, good or bad or indifferent. We want to hear from you guys, because that's the only way we get better. And but there's no way, Scotty, we could get better than, you know, or get substantially better than what we just did. We'll try, but it's just I can't make any promises.
Yeah, it was completely amazing. I'll never miss one as long as I'm alive. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Does anybody have anything they want to say here in closing? I'm not seeing anybody's head move. I think we will close this out. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight to talk about Bet Bash. And everybody have a good night, and I'll see you guys on Twitter.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone.